Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Brandon Laws and I'm today's moderator. Today's speaker is Tana Thomson, and I'll give an introduction for her shortly. People and talent issues are the most pressing issues in organizational leadership today. And whether you're a small or large organization, for-profit, not-for-profit, or startup, strategic HR is the foundation of any organization's success. Today, our webinar is entitled Becoming a Best Place to Work, the 6 strategies that every great employer follows. And today Tana is going to walk through what those 6 strategies are. So before I give an introduction to Tana, we are going to do just a little bit of housekeeping. Today's webinar is 45 minutes long. Tana will probably go to about 10:30 in terms of the presentation, 10:35-ish. And then we'll try to do 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. And for the Q&A portion of this, I will be monitoring questions throughout the webinar, the presentation. So go to the chat window on the GoToMeeting panel, and I will be monitoring those questions. We may not get to all of them, but we do have your email logged. So if we can't get to the questions, we'll email and follow up directly. A question we also get quite a bit of is, are the slides and recording available? And we typically render the recording, and within 24 to 48 hours we'll follow up in an email with the recording and the slides. Right now HR CI credit is pending. We'll have 1 credit likely available, and email me directly at brandon.laws@xeniumhr.com to get the certificate if you would like that. And then for other alerts for events, webinars, podcasts, go to our website at xeniumhr.com and type in your email about halfway down the screen, and you can subscribe to all our updates that way. So Tana Thomson today is our presenter. She's the VP of HR at Xenium HR. She currently leads the HR service team, which consists of over 20 HR folks. She has her SPHR and CCP certifications. She has a long history at Xenium and just in general in the HR industry. She has 20 plus years of experience with a lot of expertise in senior leadership, management of HR departments, compensation, culture development, and delivery of leadership and development programs. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tana Thomson. I'll turn it over to her.
Good morning. The first strategy we're going to talk about today is how to leverage your employer value proposition to attract, engage, and retain your high-performing employees. I'm going to take a few minutes to review the term employee value proposition, as the term may be new for some of you. An employer value proposition is a collective group of programs that an organization offers in exchange for employment, also referred to as the employment deal. It defines the give and get between the employee and the company, encompassing every aspect of the employment experience, from the organizational mission, purpose, and values to a company's jobs, culture, and people, linking in a full array of total rewards programs. It's important to identify why the total rewards experience at your organization is superior to other organizations, especially when you're competing for talent. Total rewards encompasses compensation, benefits, work-life and worker flexibility, performance and recognition, and training and development. Some examples of tailored total rewards could be team community service events, workplace flexibility, peer recognition programs, and career development. It's important to tie your total reward strategy to your employee value proposition. When employees are in the right role and their personal values align with company values, employee loyalty grows significantly. To get started in formalizing your organization's employment value proposition, you need to carefully select a cross-department team. Marketing and HR should serve as team facilitators. Begin with discussing a broad base of questions. Who are we as an organization? What do we do? Why does that matter? What will the workforce need? And where do we compete for talent? Once you can articulate that employer value proposition, Look for opportunities to market to current and prospective employees and weave throughout your HR programs. The second strategy I'd like to talk about is culture and engagement. Company culture is more important now than ever before. While it used to be a nice to have, it has moved to a must-have in order to attract the best and the brightest. When prospective employees look at job opportunities, they weigh workplace culture at the top of the list, reinforcing again the importance of building your employment brand. Millennials have become the largest generation in the workforce, making up almost 54 million employees. Growing up in a different setting from previous generations with greater financial prosperity and rapid technological advancement, which has contributed to shifting employee priorities that we're experiencing in the workplace today. Today's workforce places higher value on culture, employer brand, social responsibility, workplace flexibility, and professional development opportunities. Culture is that one identifier, the only identifier of values and norms for your organization. Ensure that you're integrating culture into your people practices. Getting started on building a great workplace culture requires getting clarity on what behaviors and attitudes identify your organization. It's important to get buy-in from your employee groups and opinion leaders across the organization, ensuring senior leaders are walking the talk and that we're hiring as much for culture fit as experience. A strong culture generally translates into an engaged workforce. High team engagement drives higher customer loyalty and satisfaction. Makes sense, right? If your employees are happy and engaged, this transcends to your customers, suppliers. A recent Gallup survey found that over half of U.S. employees are not engaged at work. The impact of disengagement leads to greater inefficiencies, errors, absenteeism, and lower revenues. There is a direct link between engagement and employee feedback. Employees are 2 times more likely to be disengaged if they are ignored by their manager. An astounding 98% of employees will fail to engage if they have received little or no feedback from their manager. We need to ensure our managers are in the practice of providing regular, timely, and specific feedback to their staff. Another reason to invest in a formal training and development program for your leaders. Is your team engaged? Employee engagement surveys are a great tool to measure engagement levels. I'd encourage you to conduct an engagement survey on a quarterly, semi-annual, or annual basis and measure against prior periods. Share the feedback with your managers and employees, being transparent about strengths and areas to improve. If you make it an ongoing practice, you can benchmark and strive to improve your score with each future survey. There are also a lot of tools available online to help measure employee engagement as well. The third strategy I'd like to talk about today is workforce planning. The number one challenge facing CEOs over the past 3 years is human capital. Workforce planning is the process that provides strategic direction to ensure an organization has the right people, the right time, the right place, and the right price. HR has an opportunity to partner with business leaders to stay ahead of the curve in determining what the organization will need to build, buy, or borrow with regard to talent to meet future growth demands. Succession planning starts with identification of critical roles and assessing talent on a frequent basis. Includes identifying shortages of qualified talent to fill critical roles and assessing incumbents in their roles today to determine potential turnover and employee engagement levels, as well as your ability to transition your workforce into the future. Identify what percentage of your talent could retire within the next 5 to 10 years. Look at particular job categories that may be more heavily impacted first. Create fast tracks for high potential employees demonstrating both the capabilities and drive. Look at treating phased retirement and flexible work options as a managed program that gives each employee a menu of options to tailor the work situation that best suits both the employee and organizational needs. Look to create talent pipelines and skill development programs to prepare for future workforce needs. Look for ways to promote knowledge transfer and cross-training. Focus on building future leaders. Offer leadership development training to high potential employees who have been identified as a potential future leader. You can leverage both internal and external training offerings, and it also serves as a great retention tool. The fourth strategy I'm going to talk about today is total rewards. It has become increasingly clear that the battle for talent involves much more than a strategically designed compensation and benefits program. While these programs remain critical, the most successful companies realize that they must take a total rewards approach, emphasizing attraction, motivation, and retention of staff. All elements of total rewards must be operating: compensation, benefits, work life, performance and recognition, and development and career opportunities. It may not be realistic for an organization to lead in all areas, but an organization should identify which areas they would like to lead in and incorporate their employer value proposition tied to your total rewards philosophy and strategy, and proactively communicate and reinforce with your employees. Compensation is broken down by fixed and variable pay. Fixed pay is referred to as salary or hourly rate of pay. Variable pay can consist of commissions, bonuses, incentives, profit sharing, performance sharing, and equity. Variable pay should be tailored to what behaviors you are trying to incent for each unique position or as an organization. It's also important to identify your organization's pay philosophy relative to the market as a component of your total reward strategy. 95% of organizations today use a market-based pay approach to setting their pay ranges and structure. And many companies have an annual compensation review process established. Employer benefits continue to increase in complexity and cost. It's important to understand what your employees value and continue to ensure that your benefit package is well aligned with employee priorities. Annual benefit surveys can be helpful in uncovering this. Also look for creative benefit offerings that are interesting and unique to your organization and tied to your mission. The next component of total rewards is performance management. 4 out of 5 employees don't like their company's current performance management process. The top 3 goals of performance management should be to reward employees for their contributions, develop talent, and drive organizational performance. Is your current performance management process accomplishing any or all of these 3 objectives? Some leading organizations have shifted away from numeric ratings with a greater focus on the feedback loop, goal setting, and measuring the overall impact of contributions to the organization. Recognition. Employee engagement surveys indicate that employees don't feel they are adequately rewarded for the work they do. Recognition can have a big impact on employee engagement and retention. As we know, employees are motivated both intrinsically and extrinsically. The graphic on this slide comes from psychologist Abraham Maslow. Many of you may be familiar with this concept. It rings true to the employee experience as well. We start at the bottom of the triangle employees must have their basic needs met, and basic needs fall in the areas of salary and benefits. Once those basic needs are met, to get a truly engaged, fulfilled employee, we need to meet the other three criteria. The next is belongingness and love needs, which relates to culture and connection with coworkers, with anybody that your employees interact with through the course of their workday. The fourth tier here is esteem needs, so sense of accomplishment, value, and contribution. This comes in with recognition, and peer-to-peer recognition can be equally as valuable. The fifth or ideal place is the self-actualization. So this is where an employee is happy, free to express themselves, fulfilling their potential at work. And that is the goal we strive for as HR professionals and business leaders. Total rewards experts are recommending that organizations shift 1% of their total payroll budget to recognition programs. When employees are regularly recognized, they are 2 times more engaged and 35% more likely to say that their culture is fun, and 37% are more likely to say that their company cares about them as a person. Look for opportunities for managers to catch someone doing something right. A sincere thank you can go a long way. Development and career pathing are great retention tools. It's important to communicate your training and development programs and embed in your ongoing performance management process. Ensure that your employees know what development opportunities are available to them and build in a quarterly meeting discussion around their development. The fifth strategy I want to talk about is the value of integrating HR systems. Implementing a human resource information system can enhance an organization's long-term productivity and profitability. It can also transform human resources role in an organization, allowing them to focus more on their strategic people needs. Ideally, your human resource information system will be fully integrated and extend your HR administrative and reporting requirements, talent acquisition, and performance management. There are a lot of tools and systems that are available, ensure that you take the time to vet the best tool for your organizational needs. The last strategy I'd like to talk about today is measuring the success of your human resource function through human resource analytics. HR analytics or metrics are key for goal alignment, driving employee performance, and hiring quality talent. Common HR metrics that are used are employee engagement, cost per hire, turnover, time to fill, tenure, promotions, and workers' compensation claims. Implementing these core metrics can serve as a gauge on the health of your people practices and help to measure improved progress. I'd encourage you to start with selecting 3 or 4 key metrics and see how it impacts decision-making and performance of your HR function going forward. This concludes the webinar today. I'd like to hand it back over to Brandon for questions.
Thank you, Tana. And I'd love to invite folks who've been part of the presentation to go ahead and ask questions in the chat panel. We've already got a few, which I'll address here in a second. Just as a reminder, though, we are recording this, and these, the recording and the slides will be available after the session. We will email those out. Additionally, we have 1 credit of HRCI available. And if you want to take advantage of that, go ahead and email me at brandon.laws@xeniumhr.com, and I will get you a certificate. Now for the questions, Tana. One of the questions we have is related to flexibility in the workplace. Paul asks, any suggestions for how to present requests for a reduced schedule? For example, having a new family, you need that flexibility, to other employees who are not necessarily working a reduced schedule. So I think just the combination of, like, some people are working a normal schedule, but some people need a flexible schedule. How do you recommend sort of handling all that?
I think I'd recommend having a conversation with each employee. Each employee is unique and has different needs at different times, and so really tailoring those needs to best fit your employee and ensuring that it's a win-win for the employer as well. So it may not be identical, but it may be equitable. So look for those opportunities to have those discussions and really be tuned in to what each employee is motivated by, is valuing at that current state.
The next question comes in from Sarah, and she's just saying we have a lack of resources, small company. Out of all of these situations, the 6 strategies, where's the best place to get started?
I think it really starts with culture and mission and getting clear on why you do what you do and really getting people behind that mission. So we work with a lot of nonprofits and resources may be limited and people go to work there because of the mission and because of the difference that they're making. And so really trying to augment those benefits and that cause can be really impactful.
Next question comes in from Beth. She asks, how do you recommend or do you have any ways to evaluate HRIS systems? And I suppose it's unique to each company, but...
Unique to each company, also looking at their payroll and benefit platforms. I think the end goal is to try to get integration where you can and have a lot of the systems talking to each other so you can gain some efficiencies and have that information available to several different parties that may need it.
A follow-up question for me personally, about how many should you evaluate when you're going through a process like that?
I would evaluate at least 3 to 5.
And are there certain criteria that you probably need to evaluate?
Absolutely, depending on the size of your organization, the complexity, those types of things. But it's really important to get the talent management piece tied in there as well. So the life cycle of the employee from the job posting phase through an employee exiting, that employee life cycle. So if you can get the full integration there, it can be incredibly valuable and create some efficiencies.
The next question comes in from Beach, and this is more of a philosophical question for you personally. What are your thoughts on a 32-hour work week for staff?
There's a lot of studies out there that are saying that, more work can get done in less time if you've got engaged, recharged employees. So at the end of the day, we've got to measure productivity and results. And I think we have to rethink about how work is being done and challenge old paradigms and norms. And I think some of the newer generations are, really kind of pushing us forward in those areas.
Next question comes in from John. He's asking, how do I develop a total compensation analysis if you don't even know where to start?
Yeah, I would look with your payroll and HR provider. Payroll's got a lot of great data as it relates to pay and benefits, and they can help you work through that tool. You want to make sure you've thought through all of it, because once you do message to employees, you want to make sure what the message is clear and what value you're trying to articulate with your employees. And so I think really understanding why you want to do it and doing the due diligence to make sure that it's accurate and all-encompassing would be important. But I'd certainly reach out to your HR payroll team to help prepare that information. The presentation is going to be equally as important.
Next question comes in from Dan. He asks, can you explain what the market pay approach to compensation is?
Great question. So market pay is based on reputable compensation surveys that are out there and available, and there's several of those that are cloud-based tools now that have good employee size that can draw in your relevant labor market. And so we look at benchmarking like jobs. You may not be able to benchmark all the jobs in your companies, especially in smaller companies. There's a lot of positions that are unique to you, but we try to benchmark at least 50% of your jobs to the market, and those are like jobs in all companies. An example could be an accountant, a marketing specialist, an admin assistant, and we go out and we see what's going on in the market. And the nice thing about a lot of these tools now is you can scope by industry, employee size, revenue size, geographic location.
This next question comes from Ann, and I really love this question. What are some of the most effective ways to make employees aware of the value and maybe availability of some of the non-traditional benefits that are offered? And we always talk about like medical and 401k and those sort of things, but what about those non-traditional benefits that employees get access to?
Yeah, I think one nice thing to do as part of your hiring practice is to put together a benefits guide and really use that as a marketing tool. And you can provide that to prospective employees as well, and it gives you an opportunity to showcase your unique employee benefits. I would encourage you to talk about it through the recruitment process and then help reinforce it through employee newsletters, employee communications, all company meetings, team meetings, and continue to show you the value of that benefit. And then I would encourage you to periodically survey your employees to make sure they're continuing to get value in those unique benefits. But there's some small things you can do that are unique benefits that really can go a long ways for your employees. So it's getting creative, it's asking, it's checking in, it's maybe readjusting from time to time because priorities could shift.
Next question comes from Kelsey. She asks, how do you feel the new FLSA requirements will affect employee culture? And then she follows up just saying, our first thoughts on the changes are that they will feel like demotions in terms of change in pay, since we really can't afford to give everyone raises to reach the new pay levels.
Yeah, I think it's how it's communicated. If it's communicated as a positive, it's really allowing employees to get additional compensation there. And I know there may be a stigma sometimes with the exempt, non-exempt, but it's really how valued the employee feels in their role. And I think it can be messaged well to get some buy-in from your employees.
Chris asks, how do you do a talent review for purposes of succession planning?
Yeah, I think you need to identify who the key players are to do the talent review. You could also look at having a third-party coach, executive coach facilitate, or somebody that's skilled in talent assessment, and really you're looking at the willing and able column, and you can do that quadrant, and you can challenge each other to say, well, I'm seeing something different in this department, and really hold each other to being honest about what talent looks like and what the future workforce needs are going to be, looking at that willing and able category. There's also the Lominger 9-box as well that you can do as a useful tool for the talent review process.
Just a follow-up question by me. When you talk about the willing and able distinction, this sounds like you're really having conversations with the employees about the willing part. I mean, they have to have an interest.
Right. So they have to have the drive, the interest, the curiosity to do the work, to grow and develop and be a future leader. And they've got to have the capabilities and the skills to be a top performer. And it's also about getting the right people in the right jobs. I think that's certainly a tall order for managers, but something that's incredibly important. You could have somebody that's a great culture fit that has some great skills but is placed in the wrong position. And so as much as you're able to in a smaller company, trying to get them in the right position so they can thrive and get to that kind of that top bucket that we talked about in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that self-actualized employee. And top performers outperform other employers 4 to 5 times. So it is impactful, it does make a difference, and it's something that we all should be paying attention to.
Cindy asks, when you talk about like developing a mentor program internally, they seem a little forced if you develop like a formal program, but how do you recommend really launching the program to where it's more authentic and it's,
I think it starts, I'm a big proponent of one-on-one meetings. I talked about the feedback loop and feedback exchange. You need to have that engagement with your team, whether it's a daily check-in, a weekly 5-minute check-in, or a monthly frequency, that they have dedicated time to their development. And I think part of that is understanding their interests and skills and where they'd like to go, and matching them up with somebody else in the organization that has particular expertise and interest in that area, and having them go talk to them and say, hey, would you be willing to be an informal mentor? Can we grab coffee once a month? Here's some things that I'm hoping to glean from your knowledge base. And generally they're flattered and they'd love to engage in that mentor relationship. And it works really well. We've done it here for several years, and some of our mentor-mentee relationships continue on. Others have stopped. They felt like they had obtained what they needed to obtain from the relationship, and have even branched out and started other informal relationships to build in another area that they want to grow and develop in. So it can happen pretty organically as well. The biggest thing is that they can make that connection, and that they'll devote the time to doing the work, and they're clear on what they're hoping to get out of the mentor relationship.
Next question comes from Beach. She asks, what are your suggestions on effectively messaging exempt, non-exempt differentiation to employees?
Yeah, I mean, it depends if you're doing it company-wide versus employee to employee, but in basic terms, exempt employees are paid for the job they do, and non-exempt employees are paid for the hours they work. in simple terms. And so, but I'd probably want to look at tailoring the message depending on what's going on in your workforce to make sure it's received well with that employee group and helping accomplish what we're hoping to accomplish with the messaging.
Next question comes from Nicole. She asks, how do you balance a feedback loop-based performance assessment process, which says, in other words, no formal ratings, with the legal needs to show fair promotions, terminations, and then also fairly recognize employees?
Mm-hmm. So we're going to need to quantify contribution or value to the organization, and so that may be different depending on each department's needs, but it's working with HR to get clear on how you can objectively measure impact or contributions. So I think it would be important to say what's the difference between X employee and Y employee as it relates to contribution and value. If it's gaining new skills, certifications, size of book or size of job, cross-training opportunities, those types of things that we can measure and still get it down. The biggest thing I see with performance reviews is that managers try to soften the message, which actually does a bigger disservice to the employee. So as long as we're being clear and giving authentic feedback, we can still give development and constructive feedback. We just need to be authentic about it and be real with them so they know they're either meeting or not meeting expectations. So it's around that ongoing dialogue and feedback exchange. And certainly looping in the employees and asking them how they think they're doing and taking more of that coaching approach to development. This is key.
This next question actually comes from me. I was kind of curious when you were talking about the metrics and the strategy. I think it was the last one. What is a good method for collection, and who should be really responsible for continually updating some of those key metrics that you talked about? I mean, you said maybe start with 2 or 3, but really, what's the method of collection?
Yeah, it would be, I would see an HR professional's responsibility to start building out the metrics, but they may need to work with, depending on what system they're utilizing, to pull the data, work with whoever's, the subject matter expert on that system to pull the information, or setting up custom reports so it makes it easy to run going forward, comparing against prior quarters.
And when you talk about reporting to somebody like yourself, a VP of HR, or even to an other executive team, what is the best way to display some of those metrics? If at a high level you want an executive summary.
Dashboards are great. Yeah. So dashboards are great. People like visual, keep it simple. Leaders are busy, so really try to get clear on what the message is. So 3 to 4 metrics, compare against the prior quarter, measure how improvement is being demonstrated, and then hopefully you'll have better informed decisions around your people practices moving forward. But what gets measured gets done, and so it's important to start somewhere and start tracking these KPIs to inform your business.
We have one more question, and we'll kind of stretch it out a little bit, so if anybody else has questions, they can answer them now. But Tana, what's one of your favorite questions asking in an engagement survey? If you're really trying to measure the engagement of your organization, what's 1 or 2 questions that you really like to ask?
Yeah, one of my favorite questions is, would you refer a friend to work here? Because I think that's really telling. Would you endorse our company or our culture to somebody that you trust or somebody that's important to you? I also like the question about, am I getting ongoing regular feedback? Because surprisingly, more often than not, people are not getting enough feedback for their comfort level. They want to know where they stand, what's expected. They want that connection with their manager. They want that pat on the back, recognition, and to know that the work they're doing is meaningful and making a difference.
Kim asks, can you talk about what a recognition program would look like in an organization?
Really, it should be tailored to your culture. It should be something that ties to the mission of your organization. I think you have to relook at recognition programs pretty frequently. They can become stale, and so we have to ask ourselves, is it really incenting the behavior we want to incent? Is it tied to our culture? Peer-to-peer recognition programs can be really effective. At Xenium, we do a peer-to-peer spot bonus, so employees can give up to 2 peer-to-peer recognitions per year, and they can award a $50 cash bonus for that peer-to-peer recognition. One other thing that's a nice recognition with no cost is to tie recognition to your values. That's another thing that we do at Xenium. So peers can recognize other peers for demonstrating some of our core values or behaviors, and that gets shared in our all-company meeting. And then we put the names in a box, and the employee who gets selected or pulled from the box gets a $10 Starbucks gift card. So recognition can also be very cost-effective or ineffective and can go a long way. It's that thank you, and it's the frequent thank you, and it's making sure that it's authentic, meaningful, and specific to that individual. I talked about catching employees doing something right. It's really important to catch it in the moment and give that authentic and meaningful feedback when it's fresh.
Well, great. I want to remind everybody that if you would like to get more development resources, just more educational type content from us, you can go to our website, go to xeniumhr.com/blog, and there's articles, white papers, and other free content there. We also have a podcast that we regularly get out about once a week. You can go to iTunes and subscribe that way, and you get them automatically every time they release, or you can go to our website, and on the blog we'll actually have the full podcast in audio format and in transcribed fashion. So if you like to read, that's a good way to do that. And then webinar recordings. If you missed some of our past webinars, go to xeniumhr.com/webinars and you can get all of them there. And then if you need to reach out to me or to Tana, our email addresses are right there on the screen, although silly me, I forgot to replace with Tana's name. So it's tana.thomson@xeniumhr.com to reach out to her. One other thing I'd love to mention is that if you're really interested in exploring these 6 strategies and really going in depth in your own organization, we do offer a strategic HR assessment, and we'll provide information on that at a later time. But just to keep that in mind as you're sort of working through some of these 6 strategies. Thank you for attending today, Tana. Thank you for joining us and presenting on this topic. It's been great.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.